Welcome back to Psychedelics. Today, this is Joe Moore coming at you from Breckenridge, Colorado. Today on the show, we have the folks behind Cultivating Connections. It's a really interesting group, and they're doing some interesting things, and I wanted to share it with you. They are essentially taking care of themselves through ritual and group. So I think there's something here that people could mimic, and it could be really helpful for them. These guys are pretty open to talking, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions, I think. And I think it's a really cool project. Helps democratize access and help, but it's this difficult balancing act of when to get clinical mental health services involved versus taking care of yourself. So it's a good conversation. We talk about that a lot, and I hope you like it. If you want to learn more about us, come over to psychedelicstoday.com, read all about us. We get some blogs up there, a lot of podcasts, well over 200 episodes now, 2 podcasts a week. We're about to kick off marketing our Navigating Psychedelics for Clinicians and Therapists live class. So that will start in January, but you can learn more over at psychedeliceducationcenter.com. And we got all sorts of other good stuff up there too. If you want to just help us and we've done something of service to you, for you, maybe just leave us a review on Facebook or iTunes or Google or whatever podcast app you're up to. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I hope you enjoy this episode of Psychedelics Today, and let us know what you think. Psychedelics Today, email at gmail.com. See you on the other side. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Psychedelics Today. Today we have Ryan and Rory from Cultivating Connections in Vermont. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to have you guys with us. So can you tell me a little bit about your organization? From what you told me via email, it was really interesting, and I'd like you guys to describe it.
Yeah. So Cultivating Connections, we created as a way to connect people, really. I mean, we found through our experience, both mine with mental illness and depression and my brother with substance abuse, that disconnection was really at the core of our problems and the inability to connect not only with each other, but with ourselves and our own emotions and feelings that are going on within us. So we created Cultivating Connections to, one, share our story and connect with people, and just, I think sharing stories is an incredible way to connect, but also we wanted to set up group events and really local events in Vermont and create a community around people that wanted to share their experiences and connect, really.
That's outstanding. Yeah. So, and you're kind of in the Burlington, Vermont metro area. There's a lot of people up there. Well, relatively speaking, Vermont's quite dispersed, but that's actually an interesting angle, right? It's like a really spread out state, and it's probably hard to connect with like-minded folks regularly, or at least get in that tribal setting.
Definitely.
Yeah. A lot of people say in Vermont, you got to drive anywhere to get anywhere because it's kind of spread out and
super spread out. Yeah.
And one of the things that it's not the sole focus, but it's very important is we feel like one of the most disempowering things is if you share a psychedelic experience and people write it off as not important or crazy or whatever. So like, I believe everyone's psychedelic experience to them are incredibly powerful and profound and important in their story. So we want to create a space where people can share their stories and have them accepted as valid and important and not just written off. Because if you talk to a lot of people, in my experience, if you talk to mental health professionals that don't really know much about it, they'll just kind of minimize it. And that's kind of destructive or not empowering. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What we've done is started these weekly rituals, and they're very small. It's just me, myself, my brother, and 2 other people. But it's cool because what we do is we've been doing it for about 22 weeks now. And a little backstory on who I am and what got me here. I'd been struggling with heroin and crack cocaine addiction for 10 years and methadone for over 7 years. And it got to a point where I was right on death's doorstep. I actually overdosed and nearly died many times, but this last time was a little more intense and more real than I guess I was really ready for, I guess. I don't know. So, you know, I had an ayahuasca experience, and the ayahuasca, I mean, at that point in my life, I had been using the heroin and the methadone every single day for 6 months, probably longer, but every day. And I had this ayahuasca experience that was really a catalyst into opening me up to more, to view who I am and where I am in the world through different lenses. And so I had the ayahuasca experience, and I was using every day. And then I had the ayahuasca experience, and I didn't use for 4.5 months. I just stopped using for 4.5 months. I was still on the methadone because that was prescribed to me through the doctor. But within that 4.5 months, I went from 120 milligrams down to 1 milligram.
And I just want to say what we learned from that experience is that psychedelics can have a powerful transformative effect, but if you don't have a proper structure, you can't actualize everything that they're trying to give you. So what ended up happening was Rory relapsed, and even when he was clean through that time, he was allowing a lot of emotion out, but it was coming out as projection, as anger and aggression towards his family and pushing us away. And after that, after he relapsed, that's when we started doing this weekly ritual where we meet and we come together and we discuss. And really the core of it, the core intention is to feel everything and to express emotion and the feelings at the core of what we're going through. And that's when things started to really change in all of our lives, not just in Rory's. We all started to transform our lives, and it's been really a positive thing.
When we started doing
the ritual,
right?
And I think the importance is, I don't know, we try and talk about ritualizing substance use. And that doesn't mean, you know, going to an Amazon rainforest and doing it there. That means creating a structure in which the intention is ingrained into what you're doing. Like people say, oh, you know, we have to have the right intention going to a psychedelic experience. But you can say, I want to experience something in a psychedelic experience. I want to face my fears. But what you say is not what you get. Like if you create a structure that you come to every week where everyone has this unwritten, unspoken bond that you know the intention is to get deeper into your psyche, into your unconscious, and confront the shit that you need to deal with, then even if you want to, then every week you go there, you can't avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. So you could go there deeply knowing that's the intention, and then on the surface, still telling yourself that you don't really want to do that, but you're likely going to be forced into it regardless, because you know that's the sole intention, and that's the purpose of
the structure. At
least for our ritual, it's very much about, you know, I don't know if you are familiar with Carl Jung's work, but we try facing what we believe to be our shadow and
integrating it.
I'll tell you, man, it's these rituals, they're not easy, they're not like fun. I mean, there are great, beautiful, blissful times about it, but there's also a lot of fear. And
yeah, I'd say the most intense experiences of my life have been in these weekly sessions the past 22 weeks. And it's also been the most transformative time of my life. So I think there's a lot to be said about the intensity of what you're feeling and how you can use that. You know, if it's not in the right setting, it can become traumatic. But if you're in a setting where you're supported and you can grow with, then it becomes a transformative experience.
Yeah. So what we're really about is promoting ritualized integration for psychedelics, not really promoting psychedelics themselves. Although we know, like, if it wasn't for psychedelics, I wouldn't be here where I am today. Ryan wouldn't be where he is today. We owe a lot to the psychedelic substances. But
it's just from our experience. We both had powerful psychedelic experiences, and we started transforming our lives, and we both fell back into repression. And that was when we tried to do it on our own. We tried to take the journey on our own, change behavior.
Depression or repression?
Well,
repression regression.
Yeah, regression.
Right. Into older patterns. So for me, I was struggling with depression. So I regressed into depressive patterns. Mm-hmm. And
And I regressed back into using, and
when we
much more heavily than I was. Well,
yeah, like
it was more deadly for sure because, you know, so
the regression, when you regress after seeing what the potential is, you tend to fall further. And that's what happened with both of us.
Yeah, because it's kind of like you're given an opportunity and then you kind of screw that up and you're just left like with a bunch of misery and hopefulness, at least in my perspective.
But since doing these rituals, I get more out of my past psychedelic experiences. And this is completely counterintuitive to what I thought, because I always thought like you got to strike while the iron's hot. Like the week after you have a psychedelic experience, that's when you have the most effective time to work. But that's not true. In these ritual settings for us, I get more out of my past psychedelic experiences if I sit with it and I can really feel what I felt then and try and integrate it, really.
Yeah, it's important. Like a lot of folks just go really overboard doing ceremonies like very regularly or using very regularly. And I think that it can feel kind of liberating to somebody trying to break a substance use disorder situation. But, you know, we recently had a buddy kind of just hardcore relapse after, you know, being clean for a couple of years and like a lot of psychedelic use helping bide the time and like, you know, giving the impression that he was healed, you know, and just kind of seeing that kind of fall apart is really tragic. But it seems like there's some sort of boomerang at times. And it, you know, that's fine. Like, you know, before you were using daily and now you're using once every 5 months. Like that sounds like success to me. Might not look pretty, but you know, it's decreasing frequency of use and decreasing total amounts of use per session. Like that seems to me like a measure of success. And it's really like hard to reframe that. Are you too familiar with Dr. Carl Hart's work on substance use? He's a Columbia professor of addiction. He's done a lot on crack, and he's used crack and heroin himself to get through a lot of his struggles. And now he's like the dean of psychology or something at Columbia, or like the head of the psychology department there, which is amazing.
Yeah, I actually heard him speak at Horizon's event last year.
Hell yeah, you were there?
Yeah, he was an amazing speaker.
How
awesome.
Incredible was that?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Life-changing talk. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
He's got a new book coming out this next year, and I just cannot wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, like, have you seen other folks like have similar results to you two in your area?
I can't really think of anyone.
I mean, there's definitely people who, not with the psychedelic so much, but with AA, have found success, I guess. I know some people because I had tried AA for, you know, I'd been using these substances for 10 years. So I'm very much exposed to AA and it's and what it's all about. And I tried to get behind it, you know, and it's a great program. It wasn't what I was looking for. I guess it didn't work for me. Just that's the fact of it. And
right.
Well, the thing about AA is the core of it is that connection that's really powerful.
Community.
But you have, and community. But you have to adopt things that might not align with your worldview in order to kind of have that. Like whether it's the religious aspects or whatever, there's things that may not align with you, but if you want to be part of it, you kind of have to adopt those beliefs and that structure. And what we have tried to do ourselves is kind of create a structure based on our own experiences that supports us in development and growth, using a lot of the same principles that AA uses, which the core of it is the connection, openly sharing, being vulnerable, and accepting others and accepting yourself.
I mean, AA and what we do, they're both similar because they're both very, very much like fellowships.
Yeah. But we have a weekly ritual session. We don't use psychedelics in that. We use cannabis, and it becomes psychedelic in the way we use it. I've had very psychedelic experiences up there.
Oh, yeah.
And we try other things too. Like last week we did a fast and we broke our fast together at the ritual with hot chocolate. We did a cold water immersion for a period of time, and that was super powerful too. For us, it's really about doing these things with intention in our group setting, in our community setting, with the intention of connecting and facing fear. Really, I think the big thing that we focus on is not looking at fear as a negative thing. Fear is not something that we should repress. It's something that we should let in, we should accept, and we should find value in. But if you repress your fear, you end up manifesting it. That's what we found.
Right.
Yeah. And we have our weekly ritual, which is exclusive to just the people in the ritual, what we really want, and what Ryan was saying earlier about community, is we want to do these rituals with, maybe on a different day, with a larger group of people, where we can have big groups of people meet together. And from there, people can meet people, like-minded people, and go off and potentially do their own rituals. Really, that's just what we promote, is the idea that rituals are sacred and have more power than I think any of us in this modern day really know, unless people that have studied it really intensely. But and we've talked to people from the local community. You know, I have friends and people that have reached out and said, I would like to be part of, your ritual. And it's like, well, I can't do that on my Sundays, because my Sunday ritual is it's very intimate. It's very personal, with the very close people, like my brother and our.
Yeah. And if you open it up, you change the dynamic of it. But
totally.
The thing is, there's nothing special about what we're doing, really. Anyone can create a ritual. You find one or two people that you want to connect with, want to grow deeper with. Mm-hmm. And we just went out into the woods. We sat in a circle. And the first one, we smoked marijuana in a joint and we talked. And that was how it started. And now it's developed into something completely different. We had no clue what we were doing at the time, or what the potential was. And we're still just scratching the surface on it. But since in this 22 weeks, my life has changed more than ever, and I feel like I've lived more than ever. And
I've managed to get off the heroin, but even more impressive to myself, at least, is getting off the methadone, because I was on that 7 years ago, and I went no more than 1 day in the 7 years missing my methadone. So, and to get off of it, what happened was we had the first week ritual. A lot of fear was uncovered of myself. I talked. It was great. The second week, I went into it knowing that I was going to get some drugs the next day, some heroin the next day. And so when I was in that session, I felt very overwhelmed, and I told my group members what I was planning to do. They were accepting. They were like, "It's okay." But
the plan was I was going to wake up in the morning and intercept the drugs before he got them. But that didn't happen. I woke up to the sound of my mom shouting Rory's name, and I knew what had happened. And Rory had overdosed. I went into his room and I saw him lying lifeless on his bed, and I thought he was dead. And that was a turning point in all of our lives, because my dad gave him Narcan and revived him. And that day, for the first time I've ever heard out of his mouth, he said, "I think I should go to rehab." And we got him into rehab. And then the next week, it was the next Sunday, we were going to do a ritual again. And Rory said, "Please do the ritual still, even though I'm not there." And he called in that day when we were all there, and our dad came that week. And he said, I refused the methadone today, which was the first time in 7 years he intentionally decided not to take the methadone. And that was the last time he took methadone. And now it's 21 weeks, 22 weeks later. And it's really miraculous what has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's killer and amazing. Yeah, there's something about group bonding like that that's really not well understood. And because this is where I come from, I can kind of speak to it. But like the Western tradition, so like if you think Freemasonry, magic, witchcraft group, stuff like that, there's this kind of concept of a, I don't want to say necessarily group soul, but like a thing that's created from all of you in the imaginal space. And that thing like kind of stewarding you and being kind of the embodiment of all of your energies. And it's a really interesting deal. Call it egregore. Egregore is kind of the term. And it's super interesting to think about. I've kind of experienced a few of them myself, and they're really interesting and really helpful. And they seem to like transcend these boundaries of space, like where you not being there. Like that's a really huge thing. And you still like kind of had that movement. Yeah. It's fascinating. Kind of curious if you can kind of just lay out like kind of the architecture of like ritual is, maybe from super rudimentary to maybe like more advanced. Like, what does it look like for you all to get together and do your thing? I know there's a lot of different things, but
yeah. Well, and we wanted to talk about that, and we'd love to, but Ryan said, rituals, they should be kind of kept to the people that are doing it. But since we're here and we're talking with you, let's talk about what we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely multi-layered.
Yeah.
The thing that I worry about is that to an outside perspective, just like as Western anthropologists studied rituals in Africa and they just didn't understand it, it just didn't make sense. The thing is, our ritual to an outsider is going to seem like nothing special.
Yeah, right.
But that's because you can't explain what is ingrained into the actions. Like the very simple idea of what we do is we go out, we hike probably 10 minutes out of the woods.
Well, what we do is we get to our friend's house. He lives up in a rural area, up in Waterbury Center, or up in the woods, right?
Yeah.
And so we go up to his place and we go inside, we sit down, we all talk for 20 to 30 minutes just we usually
how people are doing.
Yeah, just check in. Usually, we roll a joint because that's part of what we're doing here. And then when we're ready to go up, we all take the hike up. It's a 10-minute hike up.
And we go to the same spot every time. Consistency is really key. We've even gone down to use the same weed, same amount, same place, same time every week. And consistency is incredibly important with rituals. And when we hike up, we sit down and we talk about a little bit about how the week went last week. And then we talk about what we're trying to get out of this session, what we're here, anything that came up in the week that we wanted to focus on specifically.
Yeah.
And then
and we usually set an intention so we do this little we sit there, we talk about it, but we really try to hone in what is our intention of this week. And for me, for the first few weeks, I didn't have any intention. I didn't know. I just was just there for the experience. But the more and more I do it, the more I am able to pick out an intention. So we talk, we pick an intention, we sit in silence,
and then when we were about to begin, we ring the bell, and then we pass the joint around, and the bell signifies silence. So we smoke and we sit in silence for about 10 minutes or so. And in the silence, we gaze into each other's eyes. Try and do it with each person for as long as you can manage, really. At certain times when the fear comes up, it gets really hard to look in someone's eyes.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do there is, what we realize is you can actually communicate way more on a deeper level than with words. And words can kind of become hindrances and things to hide behind. But looking directly into each other's eyes in a setting where we feel vulnerable conveys this emotion that a lot of times I just see pure fear in each other's eyes.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And a lot of what, from my experience, when I'm gazing into like your eyes or another one's eyes, if I'm doing that, it's almost an ineffable experience. I can't really put words to what I'm experiencing or what's being almost conveyed to me. But it gets to a point where I can almost like see a lot of the emotion that you have been through as growing up or something. Like when you were younger, it's almost like that's conveyed to me through like the way I can see it in your face or something. It's very odd, and it's like I said, ineffable, but
it's really, I mean, it's very psychedelic, and I can feel the emotion. And after we do that, then we break the silence with a bell again, and then we talk.
Yeah.
And we talk about what we felt. and just get like, often, especially with the last couple sessions, the fear of death has come up a lot. And our dad is one of the people in the group. He's older. He actually just had a stroke, and fear of death is something that we all feel. It's not just him projecting. It's all of us feeling our own mortality and accepting it. And it's the most terrifying experience I can imagine. But when we do that, we sit through it. Eventually, maybe the last 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, this paranoid fear and dread, it resolves and it transforms into incredible gratitude, because you realize that none of this would be meaningful if it wasn't for the death, for the cycle of life and death, really. And it, I've felt more fear than I've ever felt in my life. I've also felt more gratitude and love in that setting. And then after we talk for maybe an hour, maybe two, maybe three, we usually bring up some fruit or berries and fruit, and we share a little meal. Sometimes we'll go forage for mushrooms. Sometimes after that, it's kind of like more open to what we're feeling. Sometimes we'll go into the stream and sit in the cold water for a little bit. And
yeah, I mean, at that point, once we get past the sitting in silence and conveying whatever it is that needs to be conveyed, whether it be fear or love or gratitude, once we do that, it's a little more relaxed and we can decide what we want to do. But we generally stay in the area of the ritual, and we don't go too far from it.
Yeah, it kind of becomes
until for a few hours, and then eventually we go our separate ways. But
after the talking about what we were feeling, then it kind of becomes more celebratory. Like in rituals, you have this celebratory stage where you conquer your demons or whatever. You feel good, you celebrate, you come together, and you just live. You feel great, and that's kind of what the ending is. And it does feel good. But yeah, that's the basic gist of it. And we've been in it. We've been adding new things in slowly. Like this past week, we tried fasting for a day before, and then breaking our fast at the ritual, and that was super cool too. We add things very slowly, like maybe change one thing and see how it goes, see if it adds to the feeling or if it distracts from it. And sometimes things will distract. Like one time we tried, instead of using a joint, we used a bong, and it completely had a different effect for me. It was more of a relaxed, like I used to smoke when I was younger.
It felt way more casual.
Yeah, casual, recreational, like we're trying to kind of escape life. Whereas with the joint in the setting we cultivated, it was more, we're trying to go into the discomfort.
Yeah, which is interesting because we tried the bong 2 weeks in a row, and then the next week we did the joint, and it for me, it was right back to where it put me right back in that place that I was looking for. That was what I was getting before we used the bong. So it wasn't like, oh, we did the bong, it's screwed up, the joint put us. I think it's because we have a sacredness with that joint passing.
It's the relationship that we've cultivated with that modality.
Okay.
And
it's like any time. So a lot of people listening to the show, like they have their skepticism about cannabis specifically, but that's kind of a thing that's been coming up on our show for years now. Kind of starting with Danny McQueen talking about medicinal mindfulness, and Boulder doing intentional psychedelic cannabis work. And, it's just seemed to pop up a lot around the country. And it's really cool to see how you two are doing it. And that angle is really interesting with the bong versus the joint. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What a question.
It's very interesting.
I was one of those fans that you talked about, where I was very skeptical of cannabis, but I knew the power of psychedelics. And I was skeptical of cannabis mainly because my relationship with it as a high school or a teenager growing up, it was used to party and have fun and whatever. And it was not psychedelic in that way. But as soon as I changed the structure and the way I was using it, I got different effects.
Yeah. So, and with me, I was a total wuss when it comes to cannabis. I mean, in high school, I smoked a lot, but when I became a senior, every time I smoked, I was super paranoid. So I graduated high school, and for the next 10 years, from 18 to I'm now 28, I think I smoked a handful of times, maybe 5 or 6 times. And every time I did it, I was completely overwhelmed with fear. And I was just such a wuss. I couldn't get through it. It was super. So I can relate to people if they have that experience with it. Also, to do a ritual, cannabis, we're not suggesting that cannabis is needed or that it's a crucial part of it. Yeah. For us, it is, because that's the relationship we've, cultivated there. But I think ritual, like you were saying, ritual with any substance, or doesn't even need to be a substance per se.
Like we did one with just our family, my mom, and it was different, but we drank some tea and then we breathed and then we looked into each other's eyes in silence. And my mom, she doesn't like the thought of cannabis and she was against us using it in the beginning. So we really wanted to show her that, it's not the cannabis, it's the ritual intention. And we had a really powerful connection moment with her. And we just, the altered state was provided simply from looking in each other's eyes in silence. It's mild altered state, but it's not a state of consciousness that you just get in your sober life every day without trying. And there's other plants too, like teas, hot cocoa, the chocolate. Mm-hmm. Actually, I've never felt like it's ever given me an altered state, except for this past week when we broke our fast. And with that, I felt real powerful presence. And I think it really comes down to the relationship you can cultivate with the plants, the mushrooms, whatever it is. And cannabis definitely isn't necessary. For us, it is a powerful tool, though.
Mm. I mean, there's millions of different stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's accessible. It's safe. Like, worst case, you're very uncomfortable for an hour or two, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But, at times, like, rituals should make you uncomfortable, I think.
Definitely.
Being out of your comfort zone is it's a pretty important thing. Yeah. So that's interesting. And how many people total do you typically have around?
It's just the 4 of us right now. It's me.
It's me, Ryan, our father, and our friend Tom, who has been there since day one with us. And I can't. Yeah. So.
Tom was the perfect person because he had a relationship with all of us individually. He knew my dad, he knew me, he knew Rory, and he just was able to bridge the gap really well because it was just me, Rory, and my dad. There's so much baggage because just growing up in the structure that we grew up in, that it would be hard to get vulnerable and allow us to lower our barriers.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool that it's that intimate. And like realistically, people can do ritual with one person or millions of people. It's it's a huge diversity there.
Definitely.
So have you two tried to do the kind of intentional solo work, like copying what you're doing in group, but like try it alone?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been listening a lot more to, Jordan Peterson, for example. Not that I know he's controversial. I'm just saying I've been listening to some of his talks and when he can articulate Carl Jung's work very well, in my opinion. And that's what I listen to. I don't listen to most of the political stuff, but I try to incorporate the shadow and the fear. And I'm working on that in myself as well. Yes, definitely.
Well, the goal really is to be able to take these things, these feelings that we cultivate up there in the ritual and integrate them into our life. And for a while, that's been hard because when we get back to sober life, it's kind of like, it's like a whole new world. It's kind of like up there is like fantasy land in a way. And like here is like real life. And it's like all the responsibilities hit you and it's hard. And
that's no joke how hard it can be.
Like, yeah, absolutely. Like incredibly hard. And like some of the solo work that we do is I mean, solo work is definitely important, but like, because me and my brother and we live so close, we try and talk throughout the day. And that's what helps us the most. We try and convey our feelings, and maybe we'll even look into each other's eyes on try and do it every day, or just when we talk to each other, make eye contact.
And like something that we've been starting to do is Ryan has encouraged me to wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run, which is something I've never done in my life. And I've done it every day this week. And
and that's something that really, it brings us back to that state of
that's kind of solo work, because when you're running, it's like, you're there when we're running, but I'm not looking at you. I'm not talking to you. I'm on my own. And
and it brings us to this state where it's just like, we're just with ourselves feeling, and our brain is telling us, stop running. Like, what are you doing? Go back home, go to sleep. But it's just like, turn that part off and just be in the moment and just do. And, I mean, there's other things. I remember one guy suggested that we look into our own eyes in a mirror. And I actually haven't done this yet, but I wanted to. And he said it can be really hard to just stare at yourself in a mirror because a lot of uncomfortable feelings come up. And I think that could be a powerful thing too.
Yeah.
But,
I think it's important to do. I try to do it, but I'm not very good at it.
For me, it's a lot harder to do the work alone, I guess. And I guess that makes sense.
Right.
Because when I'm with Rory and I'm with my dad and our friend, they empower me almost more than I could empower myself. Like when Rory refused that methadone, I was like, wow, I have way more power to change my life than I even thought. More so than if I was to do something on my own, And it's just you realize the effect that your members have on you, and you realize the effect that you have on them. And it's not only them, it's everyone you come in contact with. And
it also makes you realize how important community is, and just that you want to look out for your community members. Like, even the ones that we don't know that live in the same town, like, we still want the best for them. They're still part of the community. They're still part of this wholeness that we have called community. And I think strength in numbers. I think I absolutely wouldn't be off drugs if it wasn't for Ryan and Tom and in the support group that I have around me. But most I credit it to is this ritual setting. But yeah, I mean, there's I do therapy. I do like one-on-one therapy. I think that's super important. I think,
Yeah. So are you doing that weekly right now, Rory?
Yeah, I do that twice a week. Okay. And I did try to do it for 10 years, never had any luck. And then more recently, I've been able to get a lot further along with my therapy one-on-one sessions than I have, ever before. And, so I guess that plays into where I'm at today too. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more willingness to use the tools that you have around you.
Yeah, more trust in myself, trust in the therapist himself. It's trust is a tough one, Yeah.
Yeah. Is it ever? Yeah, it's a big project to undertake, right, Rory? It's like you've been so far in a different direction, and now through community, ritual, therapy, and support, you've been able to transition quite a bit. So it's how can you keep that up, or how can you keep that going? Or
it's really heavy. It's really heavy stuff, especially I feel it more when I'm in the on Sundays when we're up in that setting. I feel there's times where I want to cry because I'm just I don't know how. It's just, and it's all in my own head. It's expectations I put on myself. Mm-hmm. It's telling myself I can't, I need to do this, I need to do that. But the thing is, when I am able to do that, I'm able to express it, and then it kind of transforms, and it's not so heavy anymore. It's not feeling like I'm doing this for anyone else. Rather, I'm just in the moment, and I'm just taking it one step at a time. And then I can really see the gratitude for where I am in life, because
if we're living in the future, all these expectations of what we have to do, or these fears of letting everyone down, then we're not even in the present moment. But in that setting up there, we're in the present moment and we're feeling all these things, and it's overwhelming, but you realize that in that moment, there's nothing wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And it's all about kind of trusting, just being present in the moment and knowing that the future will sort itself out however it has to. We don't have to make plans for everything that could happen. We just have to be here now.
Yeah, especially in that setting, it's like if I'm trying to, the intention is try to confront death a little bit, then it's like, well, if death were to come right now, there's nothing I could do to stop it. That empowers me to keep going and wanting to just continue the path I'm going, because like you were saying, I went the other way for a very long time, and it's not a way to go. There's nothing there except numbness and not really living life. And if, a lot of times it feels like I wasted the past 10 years of my life. I wish I could get it back, but the only way I can get it back is by living right now, right here, and continue going forward.
Yeah, that's totally the move, right? It's like, just stick with the process. Trust. Do you have any have you heard this phrase, like trust the process, like trust yourself to like do that?
We say that all the time.
Yeah. How do you relate to that? It's like, it's just an inherent trust in the self that is doing the right things.
It's one of the hardest things. It's honestly the hardest. I mean, I'm speaking generalizations, but it is one of the hardest things for me to conceptualize or actualize, really.
Yeah.
Because the process let's take, like, for example, the process can be the most treacherous thing you've ever gone through. So to trust it is like the hardest thing to do. Why would I trust something that is putting me through such anguish and pain? I can only speak from my experience. Going the opposite way with drugs was worse, because not only was I still had to deal with all that stuff. I was just pushing it away. By doing the drugs, it was only just pushing it away. But afterwards, I have to come right back to it. So, like, I had this psilocybin 5 gram. I tried the 5 gram in Silent Darkness.
Yeah,
the one that Terrence talked highly about, and I had this idea, this realization or thought that it was like the whole family, my family was all arguing, and they were looking for a solution to a problem. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I think it was Ryan's face, my brother right here. And he looks at me and he goes, "Wait, what, Rory?" Like, as if it was my turn to finally say something and I had an answer. But then right after he said that, I was dead. So there was nothing, whatever answer or whatever I had to provide, I was lost because I wasn't able to. And I relate that to the overdose too, because when we had already worked on the ritual 2 weeks by the time I overdosed. We'd already made a plan to try and get better. And then I overdose, and it's like, I'm feeling like complete guilt and shame. And I was shaking. I was so scary in the moment, but I can relate those two, because it's like, here we are working to something, and then I go and set myself back. It's about myself. And,
but that's what it seemed like in the moment. But actually, that was the step we needed to take,
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a setback, but setbacks often, depending on how you deal with them, they often become things that empower you. And that moment was a turning point in all of our lives.
Right. It's something about staying the course, like in getting strong by staying the course. It's a really interesting thing. Like, you are going to stumble, you are going to get hurt. Sometimes it's quite perilous, and sometimes people do die, but it's like, sticking with it, trusting it. And yeah.
Trusting the process. I think of it in a bunch of different ways. Trusting the universe, trusting myself, trusting my intuition, like just trying to foster that intuition, that feeling in your gut that tells you something. And often in the past, I would ignore it, but trying to trust that and let go of control, really. Because I feel like I try and control things with my thoughts, but letting go of that's kind of how I can trust the process. Letting go of control and going with the flow.
Yeah. That's huge. All right, folks. So we're right about when we need to kind of wrap here, but let's maybe main takeaways.
Yeah.
One I'm sensing is, try to create your own rituals.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You try and then you don't do it. After our first week, we thought we were going to quit. My friend was like, "Oh, it's raining. We shouldn't do it." And I was like, "No, we're doing this."
Yeah. I didn't want to do it. It seemed like nobody else wanted to do it, but Ryan pulled us together. So I would say if one is willing to even try to do these rituals, I would say give it at least 3 weeks.
Yeah. Stick to it.
We do it once a week. I'm not sure how anyone else wants to structure it, but if it's going to be once a week like us, give it at least 3 weeks, because it's scary. For us, it was scary after the first week. I didn't want to go. The second week, I didn't even.
Yeah, it makes you realize you're going to have to confront some shit and maybe change some patterns.
Yeah.
But stick with it, stay consistent. And the other thing is, don't take our ritual and just do the same thing. Create your own. Do whatever works for you. Trust your intuition. Build something for yourself, really.
Yeah, right. It should be a product of them, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we're always willing to help anyone if they have any questions on building their ritual, or if they have any ideas that they want thrown their way, or just we can tell them about our experience personally if they want to.
Yeah.
From it.
I will say eye gazing is probably one of the most powerful things I've ever come across. It's very primitive and it's powerful at connecting people. So
it is surprisingly powerful, and
yeah.
Underexplored and underdiscussed in the psychedelic world. I think explicitly, but I think there's a lot of folks doing it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And do you want people to be able to get in touch with you via your website at all?
Yeah, that'd be great. We've created a website. It's cultivatingconnectionsvt.com. We also have an Instagram and a Facebook page, and we do the podcast, which is our avenue, our way of exploring and just being vulnerable and trying to
share our story
so that people can kind of connect to it. And we've gotten pretty good feedback from the podcast.
Yeah, and you can also just email us. Our emails are at our website, and add us on Facebook, whatever. We'd love to talk to people and connect with you. So
yeah.
One thing I didn't mention before, and I won't elaborate on it, but I think we touched on a little bit, but we're using one way to look at the ritual is a way to integrate a psychedelic experience. So like I've had 3 or so psychedelic experiences in the past since I've been clean, and I didn't really know how to draw from them. But in the setting, I can really open up and explore what are the symbols in the images and the memes really that I get from these psychedelic experiences, and kind of understand them and then share them within a very safe environment. Because I know whatever I say isn't going to escape that setting.
Yeah. So if you're wondering how to integrate psychedelic experience, trying a ritualized way to do it may be what you're looking for.
All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Ryan and Rory. I hope people check out your website and have some valuable takeaways here. Like, this is important work. It's scary, but life is scary. And we've got to really, be brave in the face of all this intensity that's going down. And keep working at it. So thank you both. And I hope to find out what you've been up to over the next year.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
This has been such a pleasure, and we really appreciate it.
And there you have it, Cultivating Connections. I hope you all liked that one. It was pretty cool for me. I like that people are doing this in Vermont. I like that people are doing it everywhere, really. So it's just heartening to hear that people are able to, deepen connection and heal. I think that's really all I have to say about the episode. I wish them well. I hope to see more happening like this. And I hope to bump into you guys at Cultivating Connections in Vermont. Next time I'm out there, next time I'm allowed to leave Colorado, I guess. I don't really know how things work these days. Yeah. And again, we're launching sales for Navigating Psychedelics for clinicians and therapists, the live edition. And you can, jump right in and join us. Class starts January, but you can study from now till then to just get really ahead and get more out of the class when we have the live sessions. So lots of material, lots of master classes, and I think you will love it if you want to deepen your connection to the psychedelic material. So I think that's it for now. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and see you on the next episode. Joe Moore signing off.